Going into that first race, I had zero idea what I was doing.
What's next?
Climbing up the USF ladder, trying to make some podiums happen. If not, maybe a win.
Thomas Nordquist is leading. What a great performance by Thomas Nordquist. Thomas Nordquist is doing it.
You're kind of grazing on 60,000 followers on social media.
I just started getting more into that.
Welcome back to another episode of Full Grip. This is officially episode number 2. And what a better way to go into episode number 2 than to have our own beloved Thomas Nordquist. Brother, thank you so much for being here with us. Obviously, we're also accompanied by the great Alex Garcia. Thomas, thanks for spending so much time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here with us, man. Obviously, there's a lot that we want to talk about and a lot we want to unpack. Starting with, I definitely want to get into the transition, the big transition you've made this year into USF. What's that been like so far this season?
It's been great. Learning the car, learning the tracks, excelling as fast as I can, and, really trying to make the next step and get going.
What's that biggest difference that you've definitely felt the most of between Formula F4, Skip Barber into USF?
I'd say probably the level of competition. Everyone's kind of putting everything out there and going as hard as they can. Compared to Skip Barber, is kind of more relaxed in a sense, to where it was, let's just get through this race and, get on to the next one. Here it's kind of, let's go for podiums, let's go for wins and see what happens.
Is the field out there is that competitive out there? Like, do you feel like it's kind of like you can keep up with everyone and you can kind of hold that pace consistently? In terms of like pace and competitiveness, you feel like you got it up there?
Yeah, I think I'm catching up to pace pretty quick. In NOLA a couple weeks ago, I was scratching at top 10, up there in like 9th, 8th. So I think a couple more sessions and we should be up there.
I can see how the level of competition can change for sure. I did want to ask you what's been kind of like the transition from, I feel like Skip Barber does a great job at, receiving new drivers, turning them into race car drivers, and then transitioning them off into other areas in motorsports. What do you feel like, obviously the safety side of things with Skip Barber, where it was like every time you hit a curb, if there was an incident on track, and then going into like USF, that's like I think at Homestead, the last race that I was there for was like incredibly intense. You guys were at like 3 or 4 yellow flags, 1 full course caution where you pit. It was insane. So what's that been like?
It's definitely been a change. Obviously, last season with Skip Barber was my first ever season racing, so all that was new to me. And now going into this season with USF, it's like a whole new ball game, which is all new to me too. I think it's definitely just kind of adding to the intensity, but it kind of helps with like keeping the racecraft solid, and like you're trying to find your pace without destroying your car or destroying anyone else's.
Yeah. Speaking of destroying your car, and I was going to save this for later, but I guess we'll talk about it now.
Yeah, right now.
Earlier this year, you had a small incident that happened on track. I remember I was at the track and you just texted me, "Did you get that?" And I was like, "Get what? Like, what's going on?" And you were like, "Dude, like, you got to see this. Like, what happened? Like, talk through the entire story A through Z. Like, what actually happened that led to that?"
So we're going out. I think it was second session of the day. Luckily, the last day of racing for like a month. But yeah, we're going out. I was on my radio coming down that front stretch, and my coach was like, "Hey, let's go for a push lap. Let's throw a fast one in here." And so, I radio over, copy, let's go. And the second my finger comes off that radio button, I just hear a little boom. So I look in my mirror, and I just see white smoke. So in my head, I'm like, "Oh, that's a head gasket or something. Just blew. Let me try and pull over." And at first, my team was like, "Hey, like, bring it to the pits." Coming around turn 1, I was like, "I'm not going to make it to the pits." So I'm pulling over. All the guys behind me are pulling beside me and stuff. And I make it into the grass, hop out, and the second I'm out of that car, I'm just covered in smoke. I look behind me, whole rear of the car is on fire, and I'm sitting there like really like, did this really just happen? But
so I didn't get a chance to see the car until Alex showed me a picture on your story, and we'll put that picture on the screen right now. He showed me a picture on your story of the car, and I was like, dude, how did you make it out of that car? Like, because it was
when I saw that, I was
the whole thing is black.
yeah, it was it honestly, it wasn't terrible. The second I was stopped, I was pretty much, covered in smoke. And so in my mind, I was just, all right, get out as quick as I can. So I hop out, and, I didn't really start going down in flames until a couple seconds later. So that was good. I was able to make it out.
Yeah. I mean, hell, that's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
you did what you had to do, and you made it out okay, which is the important thing.
Yeah.
How did you, like, what did you see? Like, when you say covered in smoke, meaning like even in your peripherals in front of you, there was smoke?
Just gray and black everywhere.
That is so
Luckily, gray
petrifying.
and black,
That's scary.
not red and orange though. So
yeah. I mean, I guess if you would have been there a few more seconds, it would have been red and orange. But
yeah,
I don't know how. When I saw that car after that, I was like, I don't know how the heck this thing is gonna make it within the month. I mean, because they probably had to rebuild a lot. I assume for like from the ground up, just the whole setup and everything.
Pretty much, yeah, brand new car. Thankfully, like I said, that was the last day for like a month, and that team, thank God, they were just on it right away, ordering parts, seeing what happened, seeing why, and they were able to get it back up and running by the next race session.
Does that
For sure?
does that scare you?
Sorry, go ahead.
By any chance, or like does that kind of worry you coming into the next race that it could potentially just catch on fire like that, or something else might happen, or just brush
Not
it off?
really. I mean, that's racing, that's cars. I've always been into like cars, building cars. In Nebraska, it's all straight line speed and stuff. So, but no, I mean, cars have blown up before. I've done some roll racing and stuff where no fires or anything, but engine blows. So, I mean, I'm used to unluckiness happening. So.
Did that affect your setup at all moving into the next race? Like, did you have to kind of break the car in and shake it down again?
Yeah, we did a couple kind of shakedown tests in Houston about a week or two before that Academy race weekend. So that kind of helped, get me back into the car, build my confidence back up, and make sure the car was solid.
Well, I guess that piggybacking off of Alex's question, that does make a lot of sense. I assume getting back into the car, there was some sense of like uncertainty while you were driving it. How do you recover from that?
In my mind, I was just thinking, and if I can make one lap, then hopefully the car's solid and we should be good to go. So once I made that one lap, I was ready to go again.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, definitely backtracking here just a little bit. I obviously like it takes a lot of like courage and adrenaline to even get behind the wheel of an open wheel car. And that was like from day one, you got into the open wheel. A lot of guys do Skip Barber's F4 and they might go into GT racing. They might, they might do some more closed cockpit stuff, or they might take the Alex route, which is go straight into closed cockpit and never touch an open wheel, and then somehow, some way, end up in an open wheel. Or like, but for you, like going straight into it, did you know from the beginning what got you into motorsports, and like how did you end up from the beginning into an open wheel and stay that way?
So my cousins and my uncle, they all race dirt track racing, late models, sprint cars, stuff like that. So from, a pretty young age, I was always at some racetrack. Usually wasn't a paved racetrack. It was, backcountry, oval. So, I mean, I've always loved, being around cars, racing, whatever it was. And then about 2 years ago, I went down to Sebring to do a 3-day Mustang school with Skip Barber, kind of just like a, check a bucket list item off. Wasn't really expecting anything out of it. And then on that second day of the 3-day, I was just falling in love even more. So I signed up for a 2-day advanced one that was, I think, like a week later. So went back home, went back to Sebring about 3 days later. Did the 2 day school, absolutely loved it even more. And while I was there, they were doing the F4 series, and those cars just looked like so much fun. So I was talking to Terry about it, and I was like, like,
Terry.
what's it take to like get into one of these cars, even for like a test or whatever? And he was like, well, really just show up and you can try it out. So I set up a
Sounds like a
3 day school at Coda, hopped in them, and the second I got in that car, I just loved it. I loved the feeling of the aero, being able to just rip it around like that. And so then from there, signed up for the series and went at it.
For sure. Did you ever consider getting into a closed cockpit car?
There's a couple times where I was kind of like, do I really want to do open wheel? Do I want to try and go for IMSA or what? But I think for right now, open wheel is the right choice.
That was definitely a monumental decision because it could have gone either way. I know last year we had talked for a little bit and there were maybe glimpses and flashes of maybe doing a couple of races in GR, and that was like kind of something I was like, I wonder how he's going to transition from Formula to GR. That was definitely going to be really interesting. But I mean, I think for sure we can tell you found your rhythm with open wheel, which is really cool. And we're really excited to see what you do this season. Even before motorsports, you were into cars. I took a gander at your Instagram in the early days yesterday, and you had a beautiful little Supra that you seem to have been building. Do you still have it?
Yeah. I was actually just ripping it around the other day.
Nice.
That car is probably more stressful to drive than one of the open wheel cars. It's pushing about 700 to the wheel.
Oh my gosh.
Right hand drive, like you said, 6-speed manual.
2JC,
like a stage 3 clutch, a 88 millimeter turbo. So
yeah,
it's fun, but that's
phenomenal.
It's tough to drive.
Alex has something like that sitting behind him right now.
Oh yeah,
it's very stressful to drive.
You can say that, yeah.
Right hand drive.
Yeah. It's stressful.
But I mean, that's how do you feel like that kind of, even building that car, like did that kind of propel any love for motorsports or any desire to like go deeper into it?
100%. So the whole goal for that car was about 3 or 4 years ago now. I got it and I was like, oh, I want to, start drag racing or, doing stuff like that. Nothing like professional, just, get a car out there and try and go as fast as I can. So that really, kind of sparked more interest into, going faster, building cars, being around cars. So it's been a lot of fun.
So why did you,
for sure,
why did you choose, I say, circuit racing, or I guess like motorsports and circuit racing like that versus drag racing? Something usually people stick to kind of the area of racing and wherever they're born or wherever they're raised from, you kind of stick to that kind of racing. So like if you're more oval racing from Nebraska and more drag racing, how come you got into circuit racing versus drag racing or oval?
Couldn't really tell you a clear answer on that one. Kind of just wanted to try something new. Like that 3-day school in Sebring. That was my first time ever on like an actual track or ever in like a real race car. So I mean, being able to experience that kind of, opened up a whole new door for me, and I just wanted to see how far it would take me.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I think that definitely shapes your career a lot when you just choose like one route and just stick to it and get really good, become a master at that. So that's obviously pretty fantastic. I have no idea how you went from like driving in a straight line to circuit racing, but I'm glad you did. So that's pretty awesome. You definitely have a lot going on outside the track too. From the little that we've been able to talk, but I one of the things that really threw me off guard, I remember the first time I visited your page was like the Africa project. Can you talk a little bit about that? How's that going? What was that like? How did that start? How did that come about?
Yeah, so back in 2019, my dad went over to Africa to climb Kilimanjaro, and then he met with a hospital there, uh, Kilimanjaro Christian Medical Center, and they were in need of some help with housing and stuff for some of their patients. Because a lot of them were dying from different types of cancers, because they would go in for their initial treatment, and then it'd be miles to walk every day for that treatment. So most of them would just live with it. They wouldn't go in anymore. They would just stay at their farms, stay at their houses, wherever they were, and that was a leading cause of death for them. So he came back to me, and between 2019 and 2021, we were able to raise about $300,000 now, in order for them to build a hostel. Which, after we gave them the initial check, they ended up naming it after me, the Thomas Nordquist Cancer Hostel. So that was pretty special. Yeah, I went over with them in 2020, and we climbed Kilimanjaro together, and then visited the hospital, and did like a groundbreaking stuff. My sisters came over the following year. We started helping with an orphanage there, giving them soccer balls, jerseys, um, and then this year I was supposed to go over. I ended up getting sick like 2 days before, which sucked. But he brought them some X Cancer Motorsports and Thomas Nordquist Racing T-shirts, and
That's awesome.
some kind of like cards and stuff. And it's really cool because it's a whole different world over there. You go over there, and it's just like like a light switch. Like it's completely opposite.
For sure. I do you feel like a lot of this with motorsports, like obviously this is like something you're passionate about outside of the track though, like is this kind of where you felt like you've been able to make an impact, is just like through this Africa project, through more than just that? I mean, now you guys are saying you're building an orphanage as well.
So the orphanage is already there. We just started helping with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like we'll bring them toys, clothes, buy them food when we're there, stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What's honestly your long-term kind of like aspiration? Like what's kind of the bigger project for you in that space?
Um, I don't really know if there's like a long term for that. Definitely, gonna still be going over there a lot in the long term, but it's just kind of see what we can help with and try and do our best to help with it.
And just stay involved. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw it, I was sitting next to Alex, and I was like, oh yeah, Thomas has a hospital. Thomas has a hospital named after him. Like that's just the normal thing to do. How old were you at the time when they told you?
Let's see. I would have been 17, I believe.
Oh yeah, I was 17. They named the hospital after.
No biggie.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, I mean, I think it's just definitely a big testament to what X Cancer has been able to do, and the just the impact that you guys have had. So that's definitely phenomenal, and I think that's nothing shy of like just incredible for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to go back over there. And, see it finally done.
I mean, even just continuing to bring more of the sport over there, so that way they can continue to follow you. I think a lot of those guys, maybe they don't know as much about it, and so being able to connect to the sport through you is, I'm sure they can't ask for 100%. Anything more, for sure.
My dad actually called me. They just got over there a couple of days ago, and he called me and he was like, "Hey, they're all missing you here." I guess there was a big group huddled at the airport that were all waiting for me. They're like, "Oh, like where's the racer? Where's Thomas, the race car driver, and all this stuff." So I think I got a good city backing me over there that
definitely gotta go back now.
Gotta make proud.
That's awesome. I think I definitely love to see more of that on your page for sure. Like I'd love to hear more about it and see more about just the community that you've built over there for sure. Like just people supporting the team. And so, but you did say something that I think we just kind of glazed over, and I'm not going to let that happen. You climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Yeah, we take it.
Is that just like a side Is that just like a side hobby for you? Or are you?
I'm not much of a hiker. So when he did that back in 2019, he came back and he was like, "Hey, you want to climb Kilimanjaro with me next year when we go?" And in my mind, I was like, I'd rather not, but I don't really think you can turn down that experience. So
For sure.
I agreed to it, did some training for it. It wasn't too technical or anything. It was pretty much just one foot after another for 7 days.
If you have any
Oh
pictures
my gosh.
of you at the top or like hiking through, send it over and we'll put that. We'll pop it up as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Really fucking
Yeah,
cool.
For sure.
yeah,
That's incredible, man. I mean, 7 days is insane.
You did
yeah.
that
You guys just
with your dad, or
6 days up and a day down.
was it with a tour guide or like just
Yeah, yeah,
guys? Okay.
yeah. Tour guides and stuff.
how does a day down work? How did it take you 6 days to climb up and you just rolled down in a day?
Just got
Pretty much, yeah. Going down from the top, you're pretty much like skiing down
I was gonna
like
say,
lava rock and stuff.
ski or can you like snowboard or use something instead of walking down, or you
No,
kind of
you just kind of. I wouldn't
tumble?
really call it skiing. You're just like in your hiking boots and you just kind of slip without
Yeah.
falling down.
Yeah,
But
I know.
no, on the way up, you just have
That
to
sounds
go.
incredible.
You got to go really slow so you don't get altitude sickness or anything, and you're stopping at all these like kind of camps and like camping spots, and it's really cool. Like there's some that you're on like the side of a cliff, and like the first day, you're sleeping and there's like monkeys jumping above you, and
That's
you're in like the middle
That's
of a
crazy.
rainforest, and by the second day you're already like above the clouds, and really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a big change from Nebraska.
Yeah,
For sure.
no kidding.
It's a night and day difference. But the aside from that though, I mean that's pretty incredible. What's the physical training that goes into that for sure? Like, and I want to stay on the subject of physical training because obviously you do go to the gym pretty consistently, you work out a lot. What went into preparing for Kilimanjaro?
yeah.
Just a lot of cardio. We did a lot of like body squats and stuff just to make sure your legs are somewhat in shape. But yeah, just a lot of incline on the treadmill, stairmaster.
Is there a lot of like altitude training in terms of like your breathing and stuff like that they make you go through?
Yeah, me and my dad went out to Colorado a couple of times with the guy that we went with who that guy's a whole nother story. But yeah, we did some hiking on some taller mountains there, and some kind of like machines that limit the oxygen that you breathe in, so it kind of makes it a little bit tougher and helps you train like that.
Is it more to
Yep.
over there? Yeah.
I figure you're doing a lot of altitude training in preparation for that. And how do you feel like in terms of the training that you've done, and even what you do on a day to day? Like, how do you prepare to get behind the wheel of a car leading up to a weekend physically?
A lot of cardio again. Obviously I'm a bigger guy for it, so I had to slim down a little bit. But I like playing basketball. I played basketball my whole life, so usually we'll do an hour or two workout, 2 to 3 hours of playing basketball, and then if I have time throughout the day, either go for a run or hop on a bike or something for a little while.
For sure. And then leading up to a race weekend, do you feel like nutrition plays at all a factor into how you feel getting behind the wheel?
Yeah, 100%. I like to try and make sure I'm properly hydrated at least like a week before I'm, leaving for a race. I have a friend of mine that makes meal preps that make sure I get, all the nutrients I need, and then, some supplements that, kind of make sure that everything's good.
Ironically enough, you have to be well fed, you have to be fit. But for anybody that doesn't know, most of these tracks fall into the middle of nowhere. And really what you can eat out there is like limited to
Garbage.
fast food or essentially
Yeah.
garbage.
End of the day.
So it's like it's ironic enough. I don't know what's something that you've done like that to try to stay properly fed in the middle of some of the geographical locations that they put these tracks at.
It's tough, definitely, but usually if I've been there before and I kind of know how it is, I'll stop at a like gas station or grocery store or something, leaving the airport where it's somewhat in a city still, and just grab some like protein bars, some waters, some like Gatorades and stuff, and just bring them with. And then once I'm there, just really just find whatever I can.
So you don't succumb to McDonald's, Burger King, or even better, the trackside stuff. That's the freaking fried oil that's been sitting for a few months there. So I mean that's awesome.
It gives a flavor.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. You can't deny it. It's good stuff. It's just a matter of like, you don't want to die or have a heart attack, go into cardiac arrest, taking the first corner of the track.
But you want good taste. You want good food.
Yeah. So what's kind of been the biggest motivation going into the sport? There's definitely plenty of opportunities for you to say, dude, screw this, I'm done. Whether it be just a bad race where you finished kind of closer to the back of the pack, or maybe, one of those times where you were taken out. What kind of keeps you going in the sport where you're like, aside from just falling in love and being passionate about it, what's the one thing that keeps you motivated? What are some goals, aspirations, and things that you're just aiming for?
I'd say personally, just, like after every session, I'm just trying to improve myself. And, when I see that I am improving pace or racecraft or whatever, that really motivates me. And then outside of like myself, I'd say my dad, just because of, like how like invested he's been into this sport now, with little knowledge of it, just starting 2 years ago, he's really became a pretty big fan, buying radios so he can listen in during the races, making it out to every race that he can. You can really see that he loves watching it and he loves being a part of the racing and the team.
And I always see him like, just trying to document as much as he can while he's there. And that's always a good sign to see that much support behind you, because we know that it's hard to stick around in the sport without having like a team of support behind you and have people that really like encourage you to do it. Like, could you imagine getting up and trying to go to the track and literally every single one of your immediate family members are like, you're an idiot, don't do it, you're not going to do anything? Like, so yeah. For sure having that support is important. And, I'm happy to hear that you feel that way as well. And what do you feel like are kind of the bigger role models that you have in the sport, or just people that have give me your top 3 like biggest impact to the sport?
I'd have to say Max Verstappen for
there we go.
His racecraft and what he's able to do with the car.
All right, here we might just have to cut this now.
Let's see.
Alex is a Lewis Hamilton kind of guy.
We're gonna take a call right now. What are you talking about, Max?
He was looking good in practice yesterday.
Yeah, running up practice. Right, obviously. Yeah, anyone can win a championship.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Moving on to number 2, because if not, Alex is not gonna have a good day.
More personally, I'd have to say probably Alex and Dean last season. Just obviously like they're closer to my age, and going into that brand new with 2 guys that have been doing this for a while, and constantly giving you kind of advice and tips on what to do, what not to do. It really helps. Kind of makes you feel more included into the sport, more at home when you're racing.
Yeah, you got Alex blushing right now, man. I don't think he's ever been told this before.
I don't even know what to say.
I think this is the first time he's hearing this.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. Stop it.
I think we brought up Dean so much in the last 2 episodes that we're gonna have to have him on the show as well at some point.
I think so, man.
Dean.
We need to hear his side. Yeah, we need to hear his side. But VAR.
What's your third? What's your number 3? Biggest impact to the sport?
Oof. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. I'm not.
All right, we'll wait for it. We're gonna have a whole nother episode for Thomas's number 3. But you did mention impact and just also age. People that you're looking around that were similar age to you that were also in the sport. What do you feel like have been some of the bigger like kind of stressors and like things that have gotten in your way due to age? Like things that have come up that you're just like, dude, if I was a few years older, I wouldn't have to deal with this in the process of just trying to become great.
I think from what I've kind of experienced, it'd be actually like the opposite. Starting at 19, 20 years old, that it's kind of like all these guys have been racing since they were 4, 5, 6 years old. They've I've been doing this for a year and a half now. They've been doing this for 15 some years. So it's kind of like hey, like if I did start this, even 5 years ago, 3 years ago, however long ago, I wonder where I could be. So that kind of motivates me, and kind of makes myself question, like, oh, like, how good can I be? How far can I make this go? And so that really kind of motivates me to push myself.
Right. And speaking of age and starting at a very young age, you are sharing the same paddock for a second year in a row with Oliver Weldon. What's that been like for a second year in a row? Have you had the chance to like kind of connect with him again and be like, hey, again, we're competing for podiums? Like, what's that been like?
I haven't really talked to him too much, but he's a good kid. He's a great racer, so I'm excited to see where we line up against each other.
Very light he is. I think that gives him a huge advantage in the car. But I mean, I honestly think that's been huge too. I do agree with you when you say like age and starting out, and I feel like that's been a common thread where it's like a lot of guys are kind of instead of being frustrated because they're too young, are frustrated because they feel too old and have started later in the sport. So I definitely have heard that before. And do you feel like, what's been kind of the biggest learning curve for you in terms of like now, like where you feel like you've advanced so much because of this one thing, or maybe if it's been a coach that's been in your life, or where do you feel you've learned the most in the last couple of years?
I'd say probably just my racecraft in general. I mean, going into that first race for Skip Barber, I had zero idea what I was doing. I was just like, let's make it into race 2 and survive the weekend. But yeah, I mean, I was, thinking when I was doing that race, I was like, oh, I'm pretty close to this person. And then on the video, I'd be 15, 20 feet away from them. But now going into this season, I feel like I've taken a huge step in, advancing my racecraft where, I'm right under people's bumpers. I'm, being able to pass 3 wide in some corners, stuff like that. To where I know where to, put the car safely and, still be able to keep pace.
That's true. That's a key word, safely.
Yeah.
From hopping from the Skip Barber F4s to the USF now, what was the biggest challenge, moving from one car to another?
Between the cars?
Yeah.
I'd say just like the stiffness of the USF cars. Obviously, the Skip Barber cars, they were a little bit more forgiving. These ones, very stiff. Yeah, those Code Brown moments, they come up quick and fast.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's like the kind of segue to my next question. What's been kind of the biggest Code Brown that you've had, even from start to last year, first race to now?
Besides the fire one doesn't count.
Yeah,
the fire one.
Something that hasn't seen, the light of the day yet.
I'd say probably at Sebring with the Academy, coming around, I think it was full course, like turn 11 maybe. My back left tire just caught some of that dirt and clipped the inside of the curbing and spun me right around into that wall. And
went towards the right side there?
Yep.
Yeah, I know exactly
just right into there. And, the second it happened, I was like, oh, that's not good.
There's a lot of tire marks on that wall. And now you know why, because you're not the first one that's made that mistake. People clip dirt there all the time. And just
until it happens.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, though, because now when I'm watching 12 Hours of Sebring this week, and I can, see my car imprint on that wall. So part of history.
There's an X-Cancer logo on there. Sponsored.
I feel the same way about turn 3. I clapped it right into turn 3, and every time I passed it, I'm like, there's my Mustang. The front end is right there.
Yep.
The front end of a Mustang. What about just like recovering from that crash, because you went straight into that was only a few weeks apart from Homestead, right? Sebring and Homestead.
Yeah.
I guess we talked about this yesterday or the day before with Alex. What do you feel like has been the biggest challenge to recover from some of those like moments where you throw it into a wall, or like, because it's always kind of mentally fatiguing to have to get back into the same car, even sometimes at the same track.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it's all just confidence, and obviously you don't want to wreck the car. It makes it harder on yourself to improve your lap times, makes it harder on your mechanics and your whole team, just having to rebuild that car, that setup, and get the car up to where you already were. So it's kind of like the fire. You just have to get out there, make sure you're hitting your marks, not being lazy with it, and just be confident.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you have anything specifically you'd want to share with your younger self? And I asked this because you mentioned earlier, obviously heading into the first race of the season last year for F4 Skip Barber, like you were feeling like, obviously this is a very scary experience. You've never been behind the wheel of a car on a circuit before during an actual race. We've actually had the chance to talk to a few of the F4 drivers that are heading into the season, and they feel the same exact way. It's almost like what you just said, like we've heard it already, but through other minds, other bodies, like literally other guys that are saying the same exact thing. They've never been behind the wheel in a circuit race, sanctioned or governed by an actual racing body. So what would you say to some of those guys that are getting ready to start their first season, and some of those guys that are just listening now that maybe are feeling the same way that you did?
I'd say just go for it. You're there for a reason. Be confident. You know what you're doing. Obviously, you've had some schooling to get you to that point, so don't doubt yourself that you're not supposed to be there.
For sure.
Solid.
That's awesome. And then even further back from that, what would you say? What kind of advice would you give to somebody who's looking to get into the sport? What route would you say is probably best to take now, knowing what you know? Because obviously you've done A through Z now, where you're in a USF car, but you've started from the beginning and did the entire, obviously the 3-day, the 2-day. If you could go back, knowing what you know now, what would you tell to somebody who's looking to get into the sport?
Yeah, I'd definitely say look into the 3 and 2-day schools with Skip Barber. Obviously, they taught me everything that I initially learned, and they brought me up from 0 to like 90% of my racecraft and stuff. Other than that, sim racing, I'm on it pretty much every day for a couple hours, just bettering myself, learning new tricks and tips and stuff for the next race. And then, obviously karting. I never got the chance to do it, but, that seems like it builds a lot of, good racecraft, good speed.
For sure. Well, I'll close out with this. First of all, congratulations. I know you're kind of grazing on 60,000 followers on social media. And I happened upon your YouTube yesterday, and you're like sitting at like 3 or 4K subs too.
Yeah.
When are you going to start posting some long form stuff?
First of all,
I need to.
Thanks for even telling us.
I just started getting more into that. Just had to kind of build a good fan base, which,
it definitely helps.
Amazingly have somehow in that short amount of time. Somehow got fans all across the world now that are, DMing me, commenting on the videos and stuff that are, like hi from India, hi from Singapore. And so it's crazy where that's taken off to. But yeah, and I definitely need to start posting some long form videos, like track tips and stuff.
Yeah, I would love to see just a day in the life of Thomas Nordquist, a day in the life of a vlog, a full vlog to walk me through what your day looks like. And brother, you'll have 1,000 views in the first 30 seconds, and they'll all just be me. Like, I'll be harvesting views for you. So what's next for you? I want to open up the space just for the next couple minutes for you to just say something to the people. Number one, that have followed you, the first 60,000 that have followed you on socials, the other 4,000 that have followed you. I don't even know where you're at on TikTok right now. I haven't checked, but I'm sure that's probably up there as well. What would you say to the people that are listening to this that follow you on socials? about your racing career? What's next? What should they stay tuned for?
Firstly, just a huge thank you. I wouldn't be posting as much as I did if it wasn't for them. They motivate me every day with the DMs and the comments I get from them. Always, they're always pushing me and, saying, how big of fans they are, which really motivates me. Upcoming is the USF Junior season. So we're going to try and make some podiums happen. If not, maybe a win. We'll see how far it takes me, and then, just climbing up the USF ladder. So
of course, that's awesome, man. That's really awesome to hear. And I guess my next question to you would just be like, what's the end goal for you? Where do you really see yourself in 5 years?
5 years, I'd have to say Indy NXT, or maybe if open wheel doesn't work out in the next few years, then hop over to GT cars, maybe try, SRO or IMSA or something, and see how that is.
We could definitely look in a little GT4 together and
oh yeah,
around.
That'd be fun.
It's a fun car, man. It's a fun car.
For sure. What do you feel like the impact of socials has been like for you? Like I guess my question is have you experienced like any sort of hatred in the process of, because sometimes going viral that fast and blowing up that fast, you do run into like haters, necessary evil.
All over the place.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
You always get hate comments, but one of my friends, when I first started blowing up, I think when my first video hit like 1 million views or something, he was like, dude, you're getting hate comments now. That means you're starting to finally make it. And I was like, that's one way to look at it, I guess. But no, I mean, you can't let them bother you. For every one hate comment there is, there's been 100, thankful comments and grateful comments. So, you can't look at the negatives on that.
Yeah. That's fantastic, man. It's a good way to look at it. And I do agree with your friends. If you're doing something right, you're definitely going to see a lot of that hatred. So for sure, like congratulations to you, because 60,000 probably. What are you on TikTok right now? I never even asked. I'm like,
I think
but
about 4.5 or 5,000.
Yeah,
so that's awesome.
It's harder to blow up on TikTok.
Yeah. You just need that one video to go viral.
You got to work it hard. At TikTok.
For sure. So, I mean, we definitely appreciate you for spending the time with us. Before I log off, what's one thing that you want to kind of just open up the floor for? Who do you want to thank? Is there a special shout out that you want to give?
Obviously want to thank Alex and Juan for having me on this. Want to thank my family for, always supporting me and always having my back with the racing. Sponsors, X Cancer, and Union Omaha, and just all the fans, on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, that, always backing me.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you spending the time with us, Thomas. This has been episode 2 of Full Grip. We're so happy to have Thomas here, and you guys are definitely going to be seeing a lot more of him on our page this year. We're super excited to continue to collaborate, continue to work together, and hopefully we continue back on the show towards the end of the season with like an entire trophy case of USF trophies. That's what we're expecting to see the next time you log on to this thing. So thank you so much again, man. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you're in a different time zone, so you probably had to wake up early to do this. So thank you for that.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you, man.